Emotions coming through. Leo, I feel like we all feel that. That's like such a radar emotion. Before I pass it off to our friends in our event with friends, Olivia and Shuya, I just want to do like the briefest of introductions, and then they'll introduce themselves. We're so excited for this one. I don't know if anybody has seen Shuya talk about emotional ergonomics or has read Olivia's newsletter, Designing for Feelings, but this is a topic that the radar community has been really nerding out over for, I think, a long while, even before we had like the terminology for it. And I think, it's something that we sort of inherently desire to do, but are not the experts in, and we don't necessarily like have the tools and the language for. So finding our friends, Shu and Olivia, and having them be able to come in and share some brilliant thinking with us was super, super exciting. Yes, the music did go away. So you should be able to hear me talking. I hope you can. So with all that said, I'm hopeful this is going to be a really fun and really engaging and like emotionally rich experience for all of us. We're going to do a lot of different things, and we'll close it off with some world building as we always do. And yeah, I'll let us move on to their first bit of the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Radar. Always such fans of all of the work you do, and thank you for gathering. I feel like there's like, I've been watching the chat. It's fun to be able to get a sneak preview of like all of the different feelings that people have in the room, and I feel like there's a good amount of like anxiety or like general tenseness, but also euphoria, which is great. And so I wonder if we can start our morning before we hop in to the content with just like a little physical activity. Can we do a little bit of shoulder shakes? Like just a little let out. Like if you've got some anxiety bundled up in your body today, like just noodle arms. It's just spaghetti. Like your elbows don't exist. You just give it a little bit of a loose wiggle. Couple of breaths in and out while you do this. If you can, get your hands to like clap your hands, but like behind your back. Just do a little bit of like opening up your chest, and hopefully that gets a little bit of the general tense, bundled energy out, or in. I don't know. Sometimes like leaning in and feeling it is not a bad thing either. But super excited to be here with Olivia to talk a little bit more about emotional ergonomics and designing for feelings, and what even is emotional ergonomics. We'll be watching the chat. drop it in the chat, whatever you are feeling, thinking. We love a good participatory time. It's going to be about 20-30 minutes of talk, and then a lot of interactive activity. And so at some point we might ask you to turn your cameras on just so we see some faces, and throw you into some breakout rooms and do some movement through cyberspace. So that is our show for today. I'm about to share my screen. If we are ready for that. So get ready for a little scenery change. Here we go. Boom, 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 boom. A little screen sharing. We go into presenter mode, but here we go. Emotional ergonomics. We're doing some designing for feelings here. I'm going to do a little bit of intros on who we are. Thank you. We're a huge fan of the aesthetics here. A little intro on who we are. But I am Shuya. I'm currently a creative director and investor at IDEO Collab Ventures. And I also teach and research some things around emotional ergonomics, but really just around innovation in general at Harvard School of Engineering. And I've mostly been interested in understanding the new feelings and emotions that we are processing in our bodies, because we are on the internet and experiencing so much of our world in 2 dimensions and meeting people online and then maybe in person, or just meeting them online, and what that is doing to our bodies, to our souls, to the way that we sit, to the way that we get to know people, to the way that we move through the world. And I've been working with Olivia for many years, but I will let her introduce herself. Olivia Vagelos. I'm so happy to have her here today.
Hi, all. You should know that Shuya and I were internet friends for a long time before we ever met in real life, and we made a lot of weird stuff on the internet first. So I feel like that has always been a cornerstone of our relationship, is how you make a hot, beautiful mess in cyberspace. That's what we're going to do today. My name is Olivia Vagelos. I run the Design for Feeling Studio, which is a creative agency for multisensory experience design and experiential design education. I help run the project at National Art Strategies, supporting arts and culture leaders in systems change in the nonprofit space, and am a return lecturer at Santa Monica College and the Stanford D School, my original home design family there. And I spend a lot of my time thinking about kind of like the rigor and craft of experience design. It's a discipline that at least the version of it that I do, I feel like I kind of had to make up along the way. And have been spending a lot of time thinking about kind of the frameworks and tools and architectures at play, which is kind of where we're going to be steering you today. And my hope is that actually by the end of today, you all walk out of this butter space introducing yourselves as experienced designers as well.
I love it. Okay, we're gonna do a little creative warm up with our bodies again, but a different, smaller part of our bodies. And so this is what's gonna happen. I'm about to play you 2 sounds. I'm gonna let Sophia in so that she's here. I'm gonna play 2 sounds. You're gonna hear the sound of cold water pouring and the sound of hot water pouring. And you don't know which one is which. I'm not telling you which one is which. But then I'm going to have you drop it in the chat which sound, either sound 1 or sound 2, you thought was cold water. And 90% of humans are able to tell which one is cold water. I hope no one has to go to the bathroom. This may make you want to go to the bathroom. And so here we go. Are we ready for sound number 1? Listening ears on. Do. That is sound number 1. And do sound number 2. And you're listening for, is this hotter or colder than sound number 1? All right, I'm going to go back to sound 1 in case you want to hear it one more time. And then sound 2. Okay, drop it in the chat. Try not to be influenced by other people who are dropping other things in the chat. So if you're like, I know what it is, and everybody else is telling me, well, you might be in the 90% of people that are right. So go for it. Put it in. Okay, 2 is hotter. 2 is hotter. 1 is cold. 2 is hot. Interesting. If you're like, I can't hear the difference, and you're like, I don't know, just go with your gut. This is not a brain thing. This is like an inner eardrum thing. All right, 2 is warm. I'll give like 10 seconds. 10 seconds for last opinions. Ooh. Sound 2, as the water sounds thicker. Okay, I'm super can I reveal? I'm gonna reveal. Oh, we're still going. All right. For everyone who said that sound 2 was warmer, you are all correct. Because, well, actually, who did any hot takes? Hot takes on why sound 2 is hotter? They're the same sound. The closest thing in the chat already was actually from Oliver about sound 2 being hot water because it was thicker, or because it was more syrupy. And the reason for that is, Christina, you're exactly right. The space between the molecules have more heat. But most of the time, like, you don't actually need to know I would say that most people in this audience who got it right, not listening for frequency. You're not sitting there with like a little guitar tuner being like, yes, sound 2 is a lower frequency, therefore it is the hot water. We sort of have this like experience inside of our bodies, and this remembering of, oh yeah, that's vaguely what hot water sounds like when it's pouring, or that's vaguely what cold water sounds like when it's pouring. And what I think is so funny is that over the years, I've gotten pitches from time to time for technologies that help us augment our senses. And my favorite / least favorite one is this one, which is a set of products in a category that I've started to call litmus tech, because they're litmus tests in how you feel about our relationship as humans with bodies to technology. And this startup pitched me on an AI-powered water bottle because they were like, oh, we're going to help solve the problem of thirst and not remembering to drink water. And I was like, okay, interesting. Like, I am down with your sensor tech. Your technology stack seems to check out. But what happens? How about just have you thought about just checking in with yourself to see if you're thirsty? And they had this moment, just took a full second to buffer, and they were just like, okay, are you thirsty right now? And I was like, oh man, it's been a whole day. I am parched. I am actually, in fact, parched. A notification actually probably would have helped me remember to drink water. And so this is a really interesting moment, I think, that we're at in our progression as a society, as a species, in that we have technology to remind us to do things that our bodies are built to do already. And this kind of tension or competition between what are the notifications that we are listening for? Are we listening to the notifications that are coming from our bodies, from our felt experience? Or are we listening to the notifications that are coming in from our phones all the time? And this entire exploration of emotional ergonomics has sort of come from this question of, do you feel your feelings, or are you actually thinking a lot about your feelings? And when we see a lot of things coming through on a screen, whether it's this screen or a tiny little screen that we're scrolling through, all of the feelings that are coming to us there, where are we feeling them? Is it in our brains, or is it in our bodies? And where is it in our bodies? And this is the question that really has sparked a lot of conversation around emotional ergonomics. And part of the reason why I think it's so timely, and part of the reason why I think it's so happening right now, is because of a similar moment to what was described in 1880s in Flatlands. If you've ever read this book, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, the TLDR main concept is that in Flatlands, it's a fictional book that describes this moment when a circle and a square and other flat shapes are meeting 3-dimensional cubes and spheres, and they're going, what are you? What is this thing? Why do you have an extra something that I cannot comprehend? And one of the theories that people have about the internet is that we're actually at a similar moment where we're 3-dimensional bodies moving through time, but looking at something like ChatGPT, or looking at something like internet, looking at something like social media, and having this moment of like, what are you? You are so much bigger than one individual human, than a friend group, or anything that we really have had the tools to comprehend as a society, as a species, for a very long time. And so this is the question that I start to ask is, what starts to happen when we are experiencing objects, beings, ephemeral things that are bigger than ourselves? And I started to call this entering into the age of cyber physicality, this moment of we are physical beings still, moving around in a physical built environment in a physical world, but a lot of the times encountering things that are digital first, cyber first, meeting friends over the internet first before meeting them in person. And yeah, this is my little PSA for being like, oh, I don't love the word phygital because it's a strange word to hold in your mouth, feels like you have marbles, but also that it makes us forget the physicality part of it, the entirety of physicality of being bodies and moving around in this space that perhaps it is digital. And so if you're sitting there like, this is a big word. Can you give me an example of it? Yes, here we go. I miss paper menus. I miss paper menus, going into a restaurant and getting something that is felt and in my hands and something that I really am able to flip through. And it's okay if it's a little bit, tiny bit sticky. But this is the thing that I really miss. This is the world that we live in largely after COVID times, where our physical things have oftentimes been replaced by QR codes, or they've been replaced by things that are portals into digital spaces. And so when we see people, when we meet people, when we see objects, a lot of the times that's after a screen that we've seen them on first, or that's after a moment that we are engaging in a digital environment. And so we think about what we see on a screen before we actually feel them in experience. And so it's this funny little world of where we might be feeling more emotionally safe scanning a QR code on a person to DM them to ask them out on a date. Instead of like making eye contact and be like, I think you're attractive. Do you think I'm attractive? There's other things going on here clearly to find out, like, do you want to spend more time together? And that terrifies some of us because we have powerful enough technology to talk to anybody around the world. And yet the emotional rejection of saying hello to somebody in person, potential rejection, is maybe a little bit overwhelming and too much to experience. And so this is this tension that I am constantly exploring and trying to keep out is we have these eyeballs in our sockets that we're able to see the physical world in, and it's a very human readable experience. But then we have these pocket eyeballs in our phones that are also capable of reading.
I'm trying to find the noise. I'm gonna find the noise, guys. I got it.
All good. We got it. The physics of cyberspace is very different. The eyeballs in our phones looking at QR codes and being able to take us to entirely different universes. And so sometimes when I look at the entire progression of autonomous vehicles, they are these machines that have an easier time reading a QR code than they would reading a stop sign. And so what is it like? What is this experience like navigating through a world where more and more and more things are becoming machine readable rather than human readable? Yay! I'm going to bring in a quote from E.O. Wilson here, who's a sociobiologist. I didn't know if that was a job, but now I'm like, now I want to get a little bit deeper into like, what do you do as a sociobiologist? But what he brings out in this quote is we are perhaps living in a time where we are in Paleolithic emotions in our bodies, navigating medieval institutions and straddling this godlike technology. And so I don't know that this is like everything wrong with humanity, but at the end of the day, with Paleolithic emotions, we're still these bodies and nervous systems that have been programmed through tens of thousands of years of inheriting bodily evolution and these genetic incentives, right? It's like food, sex, living our day to day, and trying to navigate and survive as a species. But by medieval institutions, we are living inside of these jobs and 9 to 5s, or maybe not 9 to 5s, but certainly laws and regulations, buildings that have been passed through hundreds of years of social incentives and cultural achievements. Still getting food and sex, but with them. But over the course of
wait. I gotta pause the interview. We gotta solve this problem.
Yes. Okay. We pause. We do a little meditation on E.O. Wilson.
It's breaking the technology. No one else can. Even come off mute if they tried.
Oh no, guys! Cyberspace. The physics of cyberspace.
Yvonne,
real wandering. Real.
Are you here, Yvonne, my friend? I want to be able to make you be quiet. I can't do it.
This is the opposite of a Ouija board, where you're like, the spirits, can you hear us?
I can't kick them out. They have too much power.
Incredible.
Okay. Are we feeling like it's gotten quieter? Is everyone feeling like it's
the godlike
technology in our paleolithic emotions are back in tune?
Incredible. Okay, here we go.
Okay, go.
So the godlike technology, this is the technological infrastructure that allows you to be like, you around the world, you will be quiet now. Thank you very much. But in that godlike technology, there's this economic inheritance that has been passed on. So much of how we make money, how to hold power about getting food and sex, has been compressed in the tools that are surrounding us and the technology that gives us the different kinds of power to mute somebody or give them a platform or be able to consolidate and coordinate resources in different ways. And so our bodies, Paleolithic emotions, on this time scale of 10,000 years, being trapped inside of medieval institutions, jobs and laws and countries and nation states and currencies evolving over centuries, to godlike technology that honestly, it's really only been several decades that all of this stuff has been around us. And so you start thinking about the ergonomics of that, right? Because how you think about ergonomics, how we think about comfort, how we think about existing in our bodies inside of the containers and conditions that we live inside of really, really start to matter. And my thesis about emotional ergonomics is that in the industrial and agriculture era of work, we were really good at considering physical ergonomics. We had handles, we had different ways of making it so that you and your body as a worker could be more productive. There are limitations in how comfortable machines are always in general, but back in our manufacturing days, those were our constraints, these physical things that helped us make things. And so if workers were more comfortable, they could work longer, they could produce more units a day, and they could be physically capable of having longer productive years before their bodies broke down from repetitive motion injuries. But we see this in other places too, right? So offensive design and architecture, or these chairs, which if you are a chair nerd, if you are an interior designer, you'll know the answer to this, but guesses in the chat. How expensive is this chair? Do we know? Do we have a price point? If you know what the chair is called, you might do a little quick Google. Yes, $500. We got $500. We got any more than $500? This is a good ballpark to start with. Ooh, IKEA. Not quite IKEA. Okay. This is a Herman Miller $850 Bertoya chair. Alana's got it in the chat. Yeah. You're not supposed to sit in it for more than 15 minutes. Like after you sit in it for 15 minutes, your butt's going to start hurting. You're going to get you're going to get this like little waffle pattern inside of the seat of your pants. It's tough. It's because this chair is oftentimes used at cafes and very oftentimes used at cafes in art museums, where you really only want to be sitting for about 10 to 15 minutes anyway. And so that's the point of physical ergonomics, is we are designing our worlds to be an ability to say, you're here, and then gently we would like to nudge you out. So the physicality of this, I think, we kind of get. Physical ergonomics is how do our bodies react to and sit inside of different contexts, different environments, different things that are shaping us. I want to move us along into this moment of introducing mental ergonomics, which is in the information era. When the internet first started to explode the way that we consume and produce value, we started to become obsessed with how to compress information, right? Like even before the internet era, the gilded era of advertising was also a prime example of mental ergonomics. And so the information era, I think, spread that up in having one-click UI UXs, from having 15-second advertisements formatted for your Instagram story and for your page. This was the beginning of the attention economy and algorithmic data as labor. And so I'm going to hijack your attention for a moment and show you what UI UX designers are capable of. And just drop it in the chat when it hits you, or feel free to take a little face palm physically. We'll probably all do it. And so here we go. Ta-da. This is it. Let me know when you fall for it. tens of thousands of hours in Figma and Miro and thousands of dollars of designer salaries, all guiding your attention and your eyeballs in and out and through all of these different parts of the screen. It's to get you to buy more, to scroll more, to stay on the platform more and more and more, and every click and every color and every little 15 pixel rounded radius. It's the most like creative and group project energy kids, like finishing the problem set to how do we get you to look at and stay on the screen a little bit longer, live in your mind rent free, and really hijack like tens of thousands of those Paleolithic emotions that our brains have evolved to be able to deliver dopamine surges consistently. And so we bow to our phones for hours a day and we draw these invisible sigils on this black mirrored altar, and we're paying attention, we're spending time. We're ritualistically like first thing in the morning looking at a phone and doing this and walking around. And so what are we worshiping is sometimes a question that I have here. What is the thing that is so occupying our minds and attention, and what is it doing to our mental health? And why has it affected us so much? And I would put my money actually on emotional ergonomics as the evolution and the second more powerful version of mental ergonomics. And so I'm going to hijack your emotions for just a moment. Please be ready. Ready? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Just feel your feelings. Like come up with the word for when you see this thing. Here we go. Ah. All right. On the count of 3, I would love for you to drop it into the chat what you are feeling when you look at this. 3, 2, 1. Ah. Yeah. We feel this way. We feel this way. I mean, like, if you feel a thrill, if you feel anticipation, amazing. I'm so happy for you. I largely feel anxiety. I largely feel anxiety when I see those 3 dots coming up, and we're self-aware about it though, which is good. We're just good. We're aware that this is the thing that gives us anxiety, but it's so strange that we have these devices in our pockets that are constantly delivering these feelings of you're anxious, you're anxious, you're anxious. And as digital product designers, sometimes I wonder, what is our responsibility for this? What is our ability to look at something that's inherently a cyber physical medium, a phone, an object that exists in the physical, but is a portal into the cyberspace world? We're working in tools that are very two-dimensional, and perhaps we don't have the right tools to start to design for feelings and start to design for the 4th dimensional time that we're existing in. Part of the reason, though, I think this is like getting increasingly more and more and more important, not to say that, oh my God, I'm anxious all day because of this thing in my pocket is not already important, but to make the bigger case for it. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's 2019. But before ChatGPT came out, we had deep nostalgia, which really put out this moment of people looking at photos of their loved ones that had passed away that were animated. And it started to create some strange feelings, early signal of something deeper that was shifting. All right, I'm gonna play this one clip. I hope it will play automatically. Maybe it will not. But it's a clip of friends. What do I have to do? What do I have to do to make you play? It's a clip of friends, and I really here we go. Maybe it'll do it here. Ross predicts AI and computers of the future. Let me exit out of here for a moment. And let's see if I full screen and play it here.
So I just finished this fascinating book. By the year 2030, there'll be computers that can carry out the same amount of functions as an actual human brain. So theoretically, you could download your thoughts and memories into this computer and live forever as a machine.
And I just realized I can sleep with my eyes open.
Have you ever listened to Friends without the soundtrack? It's like truly a bizarre experience. I'm unfortunately never want to identify with Ross ever, but I am unfortunately Ross in the friend group where it's like, hey, this new technology thing, have you heard about it? But the point is, it didn't. Oh, okay. That was really weird. Thank you, Google Slides. We didn't need until 2030 to get to a point where you could have this feeling of talking to the dead and a computer and have it feel like an exact same person. This was the New York Times headline in December 2023 of this woman who was talking to her passed away father to be able to ask some questions that maybe weren't resolved. So it didn't take until 2030. We had this in 2023. But something that I think about a lot is what we're grappling with here when we talk about using AI to talk to the dead is we're grappling with the concept of digital immortality. Like, we are out here architecting new theology. It's not just about, oh, we got like anxiety coming up and new feelings that we've gotten, feelings that we're already sort of familiar with on our phones. We have these like big new feelings that nobody has ever had to think about. And it's weird because we used to do this contemplation of what happens after we are no longer bodily humans in community, in cathedrals, across the centuries. And now we're having these conversations with these AIs and these beings alone in bed on these consumer apps that are like mega funded by venture capital firms. So what does this really result in? What does this really get us to? I think that sometimes I look at the difference between my phone screen and the big silver screen. They're both taking my attention in many ways, but on a phone screen, on this feed, nobody's curating it for me. It's very chaotic. It's just, here's all of the things that you've subscribed to, and nobody is really watching out and caring and curating your emotional roller coaster and how you're feeling throughout the day. Whereas I actually can't believe I got the entire movie up down in this one GIF, but it is the entire movie, including the credits. If you watch this entire GIF, it's a curated experience of a story about humans that is going through and showing us a narrative that has been thought through and has been listened to and looked at and edited to be an experience for someone to exist. And so this is what I think about a lot, and why I think Olivia and I talk about designing for feeling so much is because it's not actually just something that happens in a digital space. I think it's easy for us to actually just say like, ugh, well, it's just technology. Like, let's just escape to the woods and never look at a phone screen again. And that's because I think that moment of where we've designed our products, our digital products, to be about convenience, to be about things that are faster, to be about slicker experiences, has actually started to bleed back into our physical built world as well. And so I'd love to know, take a moment, what is wrong with this elevator? What is the thing that you walk into this elevator and you feel like, oh, it's a little bit strange? there are no buttons. There are no buttons. This is so weird. It's I mean, it's like, it's great for an April Fool's trick. You're like able to be like, all right, like this is a voice activated elevator now. But it's an elevator with no buttons, which is usually done for a security consideration. Like, you swipe your little boop boop badge outside of the door and then you walk in, and then the elevator just magically takes you where you need to go. But what it's really done, and I think tragically, is that you have designed out a sense of being neighborly. You've designed out the moment of someone being able to say like, hey, let me hold the door for you. What floor are you going to? Because you literally can't. I'm just standing there being like, well, the doors are going to have to close because this elevator is going somewhere and I cannot control where it's going to take you. We've designed for convenience. And in designing for that convenience, this seamless, slick, one-click, frictionless experience, we've accidentally really designed for loneliness. And you may be really familiar already with this stat from the National Institute of Aging and Vivek Murthy's work on loneliness, but apparently the health risks of prolonged isolation are equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I'm not saying you should go and smoke 15 cigarettes a day. That is not an excuse to pull out the vape, but that the way that we are experiencing loneliness and the way that we are experiencing isolation, from the way that a lot of our physical and many of our digital products are designed, is damaging to our health in the same way that physical harms are damaging to our health. And so perhaps the question that we have on all of our minds, what do we do about it? I'm going to turn it over to Olivia to do that question.
All right.
Bring us down from the existential pulpit of, oh my God, are we all lonely? Are we all trapped in this elevator?
All right, friends, here we are. I just want to take a beat, take a breath, and check in with your body. Do you feel anxious right now? Are you imagining yourself in this elevator? Do you feel like your attention has been hacked and you don't know who is doing what to your emotions? And like you might just be losing control of all the control that you actually never had, but only thought you did. Me too. That is often how I feel in this digital space. So what are we going to do about it? First, step one, in most problems, we're going to breathe. We're going to take a big, deep breath in and exhale it out. Second, we are going to take a joy. All right, so at our current level of existence, I think we are very used to getting our dopamine hits through our little, tip tap fingertips on our phones. And we've forgotten that it is not notifications that produce joy, but our bodies cannot just feel joy; they can actually produce joy. So, without judgment for anyone else who's on video, bravely, take a minute and just like let your body make some joy, and see what happens. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I like the version on the right, so that is what I will be doing. You can go back to the noodle arms. Can do the human wave. Can do a little jazz hands if you're a theater kid. Do a lot of this. All right, and like check back into your body. Like, how do you feel? This gives me anxiety not joy, especially doing it in a public place. I do feel that. All right, but drop it in the chat. What do you feel in your body after doing that? Release, yeah, a little bit of like letting it out. Like we have the power to actually like create feeling in our bodies, not just receive feelings. And not just to release feelings as well. But with that, we are also going to give you a 5-minute break. So if you can take 5 minutes for whatever your biological, physical, and emotional needs are, we will meet back here at 50 past whatever hour or time zone you are in. Yeah, I would encourage you like not to go to email. Use the bathroom. Walk around your house. Walk up and give your number to the cute person behind the coffee cart. Whatever you need to do to like give yourself a little boost for 5 minutes, and we'll see you back here. Yeah, touch some grass, smell a tree, unless you're allergic to it, all the things you need.
In case you just want to like dance or something.
If you could return. Burn, don't let it fade. I'm not sure I'm being rude. It's just your attitude. It's tearing me apart. It's ruining everything. I swore I would be true. And honey, so did you. So you hold it. Is that the way we stand? Were you lying all the time? Or was it just a game to you? But I'm in so deep. You know I'm such a fool for you.
the music because it was the
Great.
that you said.
All right, y'all. Welcome back. I'll give folks just another second or two to find their way, hopefully from not another screen, but from wherever in physical space you went. And we'll jump back in. I hope no emails found you at all, in fact. All right. So, where were we? This is going to be my invitation to you, my letter of welcome into the world of magic. We are going to spend the next half an hour, and we are all going to become experience designers. Because I would like us to be the ones who go out into the world, the physical world and the cyber physical world and the cyber world, and design for the good feelings, not the ones we were having moments ago before our break. Because here's the thing, whether or not we are intentional about it, we are all affecting one another all the time. We are constantly changing one another's experiences, only we're not necessarily being that thoughtful about it. So we might as well be intentional. Because what if the feelings we designed for were feelings of consent and inclusion and inspiration and awe and connection, contentedness and enoughness and radical imagination and resilience? And us doing this, all of us doing this together, would be a fundamental challenge to pretty much the way that the entire internet has been designed up to this point. Cyberspace, unfortunately, has been mostly designed, when it has been intentionally designed, to center the feelings of scarcity and shame and accidental undesired consent, the forced allow all cookies, and the inability to see what that really does, envy, exclusion, constantly wanting, fear, not enoughness, kind of like attention dysplasia. All these feelings are the primary drivers of capitalism, and so this is how the internet has really been designed. So we're going to become experience designers. And now that you have taken on this new title, I'm so happy for you. Welcome to the club. We're all here. But you may be wondering, like, what actually is experience design? How do I talk to people about it now that I introduce myself, as this thing? Let me tell you, LinkedIn and I strongly disagree about what an experience designer is. If you search experience design jobs on LinkedIn, this is what you're going to get. It's a lot of event production. It's a lot of user experience, user interface, UX, UI. It's a lot of experience marketing. And yes, those things do involve experience design, but what I'm talking about expands pretty far beyond any of those. See if we're gonna get an autoplay here. No, okay. I'm gonna do it.
I'm doing it. I'm gonna slide DJ. I'm sorry.
Okay, wait, let me do the intro first and then slide DJ the sound. All right, so excuse our tech choreography. I think the expansion of what experience design is fundamentally has to do with how we look at the world. Because at first glance, we might think that we live in a world of things, stones, rocks, and moments, a kiss. These two kind of distinct categories, one of which seems to be an inert object, and one a chaotic and undesignable and often unpredictable and sometimes great and sometimes not happening. But experience design is really all about changing your view of scale and your understanding of time and that fourth dimension. And altogether is far better said, so I will let him say it, by the poet-physicist Carlo Rovelli in conversation with Krista Tippett.
A thing is something which remains equal to itself. A stone is a thing, because I can ask where the stone is tomorrow. While a happening is something that is limited in space and time. A kiss is not a thing, because I cannot ask, where is the kiss tomorrow? Where is this kiss tomorrow? I mean, it's just happened now. I see, okay. And I think that we don't understand the world as made by stones, by things. We understand the world made by kisses, or things like kisses, or by happenings.
Yeah. So even for you, a stone seen in with a long expanse of time and an understanding of how it became what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a
if we,
happening, not a thing.
we live 100 years, but suppose we lived a billion years. A stone will be just a moment in which some sand gets together and then it disgregates. So it's just a momentary getting together of sand.
I love this. A stone is just a kiss of sand. And this is where experience design becomes kind of beautifully squishy. And as experiential architects, which is what we are all becoming, I'm going to start using this kind of like artifact and moment and experience and architecture kind of interchangeably, because as you start to look at time, all things have the ability to become experience. Because experience design is kind of a architectural and ergonomic craft, and it's the playing with and weaving of time. I often talk about it as designing or crafting kind of containers, spatial containers, emotional containers, temporal containers, behavioral containers, and moving people through them. And it's also the creation of a time-bounded thing that transforms or changes someone in some way. It's the process for designing for time as a felt and subjective and textured material rather than an objective linear reality, which kind of our clocks say, you know, every moment is exactly the same length, duration, existence. And as we've all felt, like there are moments that feel long and there are moments that feel short. And it's also considering whether your container occupies a memory in the past or an alternate future possibility or a kind of tactile, immersive present or the strange and malleable time of a dream. It's anticipatory and it's nostalgic. Like time and ergonomic and emotional design is not just this fourth dimension that extends linearly in one direction, like a fourth axis on a map, because we are constantly jumping between past, present, future, alternate future, all of these different time spaces. And those are all things we actually have to play with and allies and tools as we think about designing experiences. But the third piece of being an experience designer and the definition of experience design is at its core, and the place that I always start when I talk about experience design is that it is just designing for feelings. So how do you do this? How do you do experience design? Well, there's a ton of levers that we have to use, and we can play with them, we can shape them, we can weave them, we can interlock them in lots of different ways. We have the environment, artifacts, the roles we play in experiences and situations and dynamics, the rules of engagement, rules of behavior, rules that govern how we show up and how we participate, space, time, the language and the words that we use. There are our senses, there's permission that we give folks for how they're allowed to be or become in an experience, the structures that we build. All of these pieces are things that we can really play with and we have at our disposal. But today, because we have not quite as much time as this would take to go through every single one of these, we're going to focus on three particular architectural ergonomic elements that hold kind of and showcase a lot of these levers. These are our ways to kind of shape space and time and feeling. And they are mirrors, hot tubs, and doors. So let's begin. The first is the mirror. So a mirror in experience design is a moment in which we see ourselves or a moment in which we understand the self. It's a reflective device. Mirrors can help us notice new things about ourselves, ways that we've changed since we last looked, whether that was, hours before or years before. They help us shift our perspective, kind of zoom in and out. They help us see, what is behind us, kind of understand ourselves in context. So we're going to take a little field trip if y'all are willing. So I want you to take out your phone if you have it easily accessible. And I want you to open either youtube.com or the YouTube app. And I want you to full screen whatever video, which is probably an ad, automatically pops up. Now, if you can, put yourself on video. We don't have to see you, and just hold your screen up to your camera so that we can see what? I will do the same. Let's see what comes up for you. Some chaperone here. What else we got?
Game of Thrones, which pretty much.
I love that. All right. You are being told by your algorithm, by billions of dollars of advertising money, being reflected back at you, what is thought of you, what those algorithms think we need or want or aspire to or lack. And the mirror is the experience of us seeing that. Mirrors are more than just kind of reflections of your live self, which is how we often think about them in the physical world. Though they are that as well. Mirrors are, glancing at how your hair looks in the car window as you get out and slam the door. And it's also your school photos, on the first and last day. But they encompass kind of a wilder range of ways in which we see and understand who we are. They can be reflective journal prompts that help us kind of synthesize and capture our own thinking, feedback we get from colleagues, a present from someone who knows you well enough to know, what you need maybe before you know it yourself. Whatever the mantra is that you choose to ready or steady yourself, the active self-assessment in any format, all of these are ways in which, we see ourselves. And we see ourselves in the way in which others see ourselves. That is this kind of like interplay of mirrors. And I'm not going to ask us actually to come off camera in this moment, but I want you to think about the last kind of on camera meeting you were at. And I want you to be honest with us all, and I want you to drop in the chat whose face you spent the most time looking at. Drop it in the chat. Full candor. Yep, that is correct. It's your own darn face. And especially when we used to spend time, pretty much primarily in physical IRL space, we were constantly paying attention to other people, learning from their body language, leveraging our kind of embodied intuition to make situational sense and meaning. And now that we are, many of us at least, spending these kind of countless hours a day on Zoom or Butter or Teams or WebEx or whatever it is, FaceTime, we're constantly looking at our own faces. Cyberspace has created this kind of what I have started to call the like unfun house of mirrors. It's not healthy for us. We're not designed to be constantly fixated on our own selves. It gets in the way of connecting with others, of having creative thoughts, all of this energy we're expending and constantly evaluating and adjusting our own faces rather than kind of the attention that is required to build kind of deep relational connection. And at the same time, kind of every moment of time we spend on the internet is monetized and spat back at us in this kind of like mirror of advertisements. Like this woman, there's this article that came out, I don't know when this was, like maybe like 5 years ago, but this woman who was being advertised baby products by Google before she even knew that she was pregnant, which it turns out she was. Like it was able to kind of mirror back all of these things that we did not necessarily give consent to and show her something about herself that she didn't even yet know. Another version of these of like cyberspace mirrors are, Instagram, for example. This one time, someone sent me a meme about a goose, and I liked it because I thought it was funny. And literally, my entire feed now is geese memes. And Instagram telling me, like, hey, you're a goose girl. Like, also, if you're friends with me, you probably now have a goose themed feed because I continue to find them funny, and I continue to send them and affirm this mirror that it's showing back to me. And it's social media kind of constantly asking us and showing us that our, our life, our time, our bodies are not enough. Those are the mirrors that we're constantly being presented with right now in digital space. And so my invitation for us as newly minted experience designers, or perhaps oldly minted if you've been here for a while, is to design a different type of mirror. And my questions for us are, what would it look like to design more moments to help folks see all the ways in which they are enough, or more ways to show people how beautiful they already are, or help them see themselves in relationship rather than isolation, see kind of what is behind them, help us see our history and culture and legacy, and see all the ways in which we are entangled. All right, I'm going to move us on to our next experiential element, the hot tub. So hot tubs are things that are designed for lingering and for luxuriating. They are the ergonomics that invite us into presence with our senses. Our senses being the things that make our experiences multidimensional and memorable and pull us back into the present. Because senses happen in the now, in our brains and in our bodies. We can drop back into past senses, but then we are still present to them, which is the beautiful part about them. And they help us kind of stay and attend to an experience. Hot tubs are really spaces where we learn to and get to just be with ourselves. I want to do a little moment, a little exercise, and I want you to all close your eyes. I want you to take a deep breath in and out. Keep your eyes closed, and I want you to imagine you're walking along a mossy path through the forest at night, and little paper lanterns light your way, swinging from the branches. Your feet are bare, and you can feel the soft, squishy moss beneath them, a springy little green carpet. You're wearing a big, fluffy pink robe, keeping you warm over your favorite bathing suit. The path opens up into a clearing, the dark stars whispering above. And in the clearing sits a cedar hot tub. You walk up to it, and you hang your robe on the ornate coat rack to your left. I want you to step up onto the small step stool and clamber into the tub. And I want you to feel your body sinking into the warm water. Feel a little bit of the night wind on your face and settle in. And when you feel that it has been a full minute of basking in this hot tub by your own body clock, I want you to open your eyes, and in the chat, you can just drop, "I'm here." All right. If you're still in your hot tub, honestly, you should probably just stay there. Like, that's probably what we all need. But if you want to come back, I will invite you back to join us. And this is what hot tubs are. Hot tubs are this kind of like sticky, stretchy, soupy time of slowness and staying, and time feeling different lengths, different textures for all of us. Our sense of time is both deeply intuitive and also nonlinear. And like for me, the time once I was back felt so different than the time that I was there. I think, you know, our calendars, for example, the things most of us live and die by these days, tell us that time is superlinear, objective, and the same shape all day long. 1 hour blocks of meetings, half an hour blocks of meetings. We've kind of artificially constructed the air of time to believe that it is uniform when really it's not. And hot tubs are experiential moments, artifacts, architectures that kind of invite stillness and quiet and presence and sensing. And in that too, what they invite is stories, and they invite listening, and the latter of which we certainly seem to be lacking so much of in cyberspace. Our physical world, on the other hand, is full of, you know, frothy cappuccinos and handmade mugs and cedar hot tubs. And, you know, our physical world has reading a book in a window nook, and art, and couches designed like these as listening pits. Our physical world kind of has lingering as a fundamental part of it, a fundamental feeling. But in cyberspace, rarely are we allowed to linger or invited to listen, because lingering and listening are not productive. Lingering means having enough, and it means being enough. And listening means being quiet, still, and it means receiving as an act of care, not receiving because you're being waterboarded with ads and notifications being forced down your eyeballs. I think capitalism requires our consumption and our not enoughness and our productivity. And, you know, it's constant gamification and levels and more and more and more. And lifestyle brands telling us that, you know, we'd be an entirely different person with an entirely different life if we just bought this shirt. And our attention has been commodified. It's the thing we now spend as we spend time. But these things we're spending our time on in the space, for the most part, are not hot tubs. They are money grabs and eyeball grabs. But what if instead we designed more cyberspaces and more cyber physical spaces that were designed like this? I don't know how many of you have been to this beautiful website. It's called Window Swap. And you literally just press the button and it takes you to someone else's window somewhere else in the world. And you can just watch the train go by, or the bird at the bird feeder, or the bush outside, or the snow. And that's it. That's all it does. And that's a hot tub. Or this website, which is called Radio Garden, where you can travel around the world and drop in and listen to radio from wherever it is that you want. And again, just exist in the soundscape of a different place. Or this delightful little experience where you can spin around and like be the record player for Weezer's single, which I love. And it acknowledges humans as kind of like bigger than the screen, not contained by it. The experiences in real life with the audience, not just kind of like in the URL space. It acknowledges that we want to like exist with experience, not just like observe and look at experience with our eyeballs. If like so much of digital space has been designed kind of with the metaphor and reality of time as money, that is the language that we use, and it is constantly reinforcing kind of this structure of like spending time, scarce time, all of these things, and our attention as money. What if we chose a different metaphor? What if time were not money? What if time were laughter or lusciousness or liquid? What if it were more textural or full of joy? All these things. What would a new kind of metaphorical construction of time do for us as individuals, as, you know, people with bodies, as collectives, as communities? And what I think it would be is that it would help us design more ways to kind of savor life. And in the end, in all likelihood, it would mean probably designing for less. And so this is my invitation for you. What if you designed for us to simply be? All right. Our third architectural element is the door. The door serves, I'm going to give you a little moment because I sometimes am an introvert. I know we have introverts in the group. In a few minutes, we're going to invite folks into breakout rooms. You'll only be spending 3 minutes there. We would love you to participate. If you need to do some like embodied emotional preparation to be able and interested and willing to participate, I'm going to give you, this is your like warning. We're moving in that direction. Take what you need to do to be able to participate. All right. The last architectural element is the door. And the door serves two main purposes. The first is agency and choice. Doors are how we give ourselves and others autonomy to choose, to move forward, to move through, to move back, to choose between whatever comes next. The second purpose of the door is movement and therefore change. Doors are thresholds. Doors are the ways that we signal that what was outside, whatever rules or physics or norms or aesthetics or behaviors or possibilities or feelings held true out here, may no longer hold sway beyond. They tell us that we're stepping into something different. At the beginning, we talked about experience design as kind of moving through containers of moments. And for this reason, I consider experience design not just an architectural craft, the crafting of ergonomically intentional but static spaces and artifacts, but it's also engineering. It is the engineering of transitions. And you can help people transition in a lot of ways. To move people through doors, you can push them, which, could look like chasing them, motivating them through things that they are seeking to avoid or end or leave behind. Or alternately, you can pull them. You can put the cheese board in the next room so that they go looking for it. You can use incentives or peaks or anticipation or desire or curiosity. You can use the hopes and dreams and wants and needs to kind of pull people through transition. But either way, we need to design transitions because change is what makes for a story. A story without change is not a story. It is very boring. And a story is what makes for a life. So we are going to walk through some doors ourselves. This is the moment that you have been preparing for the past few moments. And this is how this is going to work. You are going to choose a door, aka a breakout room. And when you arrive, you will find some peers behind the door. If you're in there for a minute and no one else shows up, you can play by yourself. It might be your dream, or you can join another door. And you are going to come up with a 5-word answer or response to the name of your door. I urge you not to choose your door too carefully. Truly, you're just going to pick the first one that calls to you. You're going to have 3 minutes with whoever you find behind that door, again, to come up with a 5-word answer. And then we'll come back and we'll see what we found in there. All right. Keely, can you cue us up with some doors?
Hello.
Guys, we simply didn't anticipate that.
We made it.
We didn't anticipate that you have to actually allow and opt into the setting of allowing people to talk in a breakout room,
Yeah.
which seems like an odd setting.
Seems
Right,
But
it's like a
it's
match.
seems like it should be the default.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody.
all right. So we're gonna apologies if your door experience was finding out that now you were mute and could not talk at all. But I would love we're just gonna use the chat actually for this to make things easier. The prompt was, and if you're gonna totally do it on the fly right now because you missed the instructions altogether, that's great. The 5-word response to whatever the name of your door was. In the chat. What did you come up with? Grapes are poisonous to dogs. Love. Easily with friends and forks. Wow, beautiful poetry. I love that. Not for the lactose intolerant amongst us. Throw everything. Wow, the Cheesecake Factory over here was really following instructions.
It's basically a cake shake from Portillo's. If you know, you know. I mean,
Pull gravitational force, no audio. I'm trying to guess I'm trying to guess whose door. The cheesecake ones are pretty obvious. Eat it by horizontal butt. Yes. Okay. Caitlin is in the implications of a horizontal butt crack. I love sun tanning so much. I love that. Which could also be the door of preferred soft, squishy, and sturdy, but which is also the answer to what is your preferred toilet paper. Amazing. So, okay, what I would love you to do is just whatever the feeling was, I want you to also now drop in the chat, what did it feel like behind your door? And that could be you felt totally lost and disoriented by not being able to speak. You felt lost in cyberspace. It could be hilarity, whatever it is. Drop the feeling in the chat. Mischief, chaotic in a good way. It's usually anytime Shuya and I make anything, there's an element of both of those things. Confused, I hate being in charge. Relatable. Joy, we love that. Amazing. So slightly disoriented, stirring technical curiosity. Exceptional. So this is the thing about doors. All doors lead to different feelings because the fundamental unit of change is feeling. It's the experience of having a change in the way that we feel. In the physical world, we'll wait for some screen share to come back on. In the physical world, there are doors everywhere. We, in our physical bodies, are constantly in movement. We move between meeting rooms or buildings or environments through actual doors and metaphorical doors of context change all the time. IRL, we can rely on our bodies and kind of embodied understanding that we're somewhere new and we're doing something new here. Something has changed or we have changed. Our bodies help us understand that when we get up and go to the bathroom, we cross into liminal space where our brains can kind of de-escalate from wherever we were before and go do stuff in the bathroom that we probably wouldn't or shouldn't do anywhere else. And then we re-engage and we leave the sterile smelling, flesh-filled, echoing tiled cave. Something different happens there. Or we're cued by, the smell of rubber and stale pizza and the happy shrieks of children. And those things tell us that we have walked through the door to trampoline land where chaos reigns and gravity does not, and everything is a party. Doors are also kind of the greeters at the Burning Man gates, welcoming you to the dust of the playa. And they're also the ferry to the San Juan Islands, where you leave behind the mainland and perhaps kind of whatever woes or woebegone to you there, and you move across the water and into someplace new. And sure, like we definitely have some doors in cyberspace. QR codes are a classic. Feel free if you have your phone and want to scan this, I encourage you to do so, to step through this digital door. And what you will have found on the other side, should you get past whatever your YouTube ad is that you have been rickrolled. Womp, womp, womp. For those of you who are laughing right now, you clearly spend a lot of time deep in the internet and you know what this is. For those of you who are just plain confused, a rickroll is being tricked into arriving at this music video, which is what we have done to you. You don't always know what's on the other side of your door. But for the most part, in cyberspace, we have actually been slowly designing out the doors. We live in this world of endless scroll. This person might be my sworn enemy. This is the man who invented endless scroll. You can pie his face if you would also like. It's digital chain smoking. It's scroll down to refresh and swiping left or right. We don't have choice around what we see next. And it's just thing after thing after thing, or potential date after potential date after potential date. And the transitions are often undesigned and jarring, I think, especially in a world in which so much is happening and we are so connected across. You have a picture of a dead child in a war zone, and the next thing you see in your feed is a lifestyle brand telling you that you definitely need this bucket hat. Like, that is not how we are meant to exist as humans. And that is super disorienting and dissonant in our bodies. It's also being given and entered into these spaces in which there is no exit, there is no door. The button to unsubscribe is hidden. There are these red herrings, all of which opt you back into this space. There's no way to leave. There's no way to leave your algorithm. Where it's being shown false doors. Every time I buy something, I dutifully unselect the box to be placed on the email list. And yet here I am the next day receiving 3 different emails about jorts. Here we are. And we are in Zoom after Zoom after Zoom after Zoom in a row in a day, having never left our chair. We haven't kind of cleared the energy. Our bodies lack the signals. When we stand up, when we move, it signals our bodies to process through our emotions, to complete a cycle, to be able to move on to something new. But we don't have those cues. And so our bodies never process all the way through. And we don't have an understanding, and we don't have the ability to kind of synthesize these containers or chapters of our days. And our cyberspaces don't have welcome mats and doorbells and waiting to be invited in, or often any welcome at all. We're not gently guided in or guided out. Instead, our attention is kind of yanked and pulled and fishhooked, or our eyeballs are, taped open as we see post after post after post. And so the invitation to you is, what if as experience designers, we helped people find kind of easeful movement and agency in movement? What might it look like to reconnect with our body's innate capacity to process change through movement, to reconnect the digital and physical through embodiment, to be able to kind of take advantage of our body's innate capacity to process change through that physical movement? What if we designed for gentle on and off ramps to our experiences? What if we gave true choice around how people spent their attention? Because we aren't right now in the digital space designing things that are inherently good for people. And so what if we gave them back more of that choice? And so this is an invitation for you. How do you, as an experience designer moving forward, want to help us choose and help us find change? So altogether, these 3 invitations for you are: how might you design, mirrors for seeing, hot tubs for being, and doors for choosing and changing? But I want to have a little record scratch moment before we move forward. Because our experience, our whole experience, is actually happening in our imaginations, which bodes extremely well for designing experiences in cyberspace. Our imagination is where we are doing the experiencing. We might be doing a lot of sensing in our external bodies or external nerves. Yes, our eyeballs are taking in information. They're taking in these tangerines on this blue towel. But when I say this to you, when I say, imagine picking one up in your hand, taking your fingernail and scratching the skin, lifting it up to your nose and giving it a big ol' sniff, can you smell it? Can you smell an orange? Where does it take you? Can you feel the little nubbly bits of this towel on your fingers? Our brains are constructing our experiences because you smell it in your brain. If you remember this, if you remember the hot tub we were in 10 minutes ago, if you can remember how that water felt on your skin, we can use this as experience designers when it comes to designing for multi-sensory experiences and ergonomic experiences in digital spaces. Designing in cyberspace is not just designing for our eyeballs or designing for haptic clicks of buttons. This is what I call imaginal synesthetics. Synesthetics, if you can forward the slides too. Synesthetics is, one more, is connecting multiple senses, connecting across, it's building connections across not only sensory inputs, but sensory ways in which you experience in your brain. And so the imaginal part of synesthetics is that we can have these multisensory experiences in our brains without necessarily needing all of the physical inputs that we might assume that we do. Because the good news is, no matter how good your technical design is, if you're designing cyber physical or cyber experiences or even physical experiences, the reality is that your imaginal design, what your brain can do, the power of your brain and narrative is always going to be more powerful than what you can build in the physical or what you can build in the technical digital. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to spend the rest of the time here, the last 20 minutes, using our imaginations, the most powerful machine around, to imagine up a future where we design for feelings. And with that, I'll hand it to Shuya to close us.
Amazing. Thank you, Olivia. The things in your brain are always inspiring. The new words, imaginal, synesthetics. I'm going to flip to one last slide from Olivia and myself, and then we're going to turn it back over to our hosts at Radar to get into this imagination world building futures. And it is the contact slide. While I voice over, while you go ahead and grab this QR code, I promise it is not a rickroll. This QR code is to a wonderful Substack that will deliver content like this into your email inbox from Olivia. So highly recommend you grab this, like and subscribe, and you can find me on the internet pretty much everywhere at Oh My Gong. Feel free to email me at Gmail on anything about emotional ergonomics, or find me on LinkedIn. And to close us out in this part of it, just a little quote from Ram Dass: "We're all just walking each other home." And I think that this is significant in a place and a moment that Olivia and I have actually never gotten to experience together, which is really, really funny and just we'll do this at some point in time. But there's this walkway that's incredibly inefficient at the studio at IDEO where we had met, where you have to go around this one guardrail to get to the door and to get out to the sidewalk on the street. And it adds about a minute actually fully to your commute time. And a lot of the times I always thought, well, I'm just going to hop the fence, or like, let me just speed run this part of it. But the number of business deals and clients and thoughts and project unlocks and ahas that have happened because we had to go all the way and walk around this fence are actually many. And so I think that when people talk about emotional ergonomics or design for feelings within a business context, and they have this moment of like, yes, but like, what is the productive value? There is this moment where you bring up, well, it's actually just time. It's actually just the ability to spend the time with each other, to slow down and be in the right conditions, to be able to talk about what it is that we actually want to do together. And so we're closing our part out on, we're just walking each other home, because I think that this captures really all of it, of why does this matter? And at the end of the day, it is being able to spend that time with each other, creating the futures that we want to create. So, all right, I'm gonna stop screen sharing and turn it back over to our lovely hosts at Mark.
Amazing.
Some world building together.
Thank you guys so much. I mean, that was incredible. Caitlin and I were side chatting that your two vibes coming together are just so magical and like distinct, and yet so like, I don't know, they achieve a feeling and complement to one another in the best way. So thank you guys for coming together and doing this presentation. It was as wonderful as we expected it would be. And the recording, I'm sure everyone will really, really appreciate. And I'm very curious to see what happens when they hit the breakout room part of it, because that'll be fun. And also our ghost Yvonne. So, you know, there'll be some fun moments. Okay, so for those of you who have stuck with us for this time, you are now in a Miro board. You can see the Miro board inside of Butter, hopefully. If you're on your phone, this could be a little tricky. But just welcoming you into a very radar space. You can hide everybody's mouses by hitting show collaborators cursors at the top. And what we're going to do, and I'll turn it over to Caitlin to sort of explain what this looks like, but the function of it is really just to do what Olivia said, which is imagine a world that's designed for feelings, right? A world that's designed for feelings by people who are actually armed with good intentions and the tools that we've discussed today. Like, what would that look like? And so we're going to use our world boarding methodology to do it. So Caitlin, if your Wi-Fi allows you, I'll let you sort of explain what's going on here.
Okay. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay, so cool. So yeah, I think it's always important to mention that like the whole amazing thing about like multiplayer or collective like imagination is like whatever happens for you when you start thinking, like whatever rabbit hole you go down, it's really, really useful because, you know, each of us on our own, we might just imagine one particular future, but when we come together, we can really bring texture to it. So it's amazing all the things that Shuya and Olivia have been talking about. You know, Keely mentioned in the chat is when you bring your sensory experience into your imagination, it can bring greater texture into the future we're imagining together. So for some people that manifests as words, and you're welcome to use like the stickies on the Miro. For some people that's images, so you might make some things in Midjourney, or you might pull collages from the internet, or some people just like Miro doodle, whatever sort of comes up for you. There's a lot of inspiration pictures, and really you just drag it into the space, and together we'll do that for a little bit. We'll put some music back on, but we're really just bringing our own experience in to imagine this future together. And I think I'm bringing hot tubs this morning, but everybody can go with what they're called to.
Yeah, the inspiration garden is like loosely, softly. You've got mirror stuff at the bottom. You've got hot tub stuff at the top. You've got door stuff on the side. It's not like Bible, but that is sort of what I was going for. So feel free to be inspired by the inspiration garden, or feel free to just like do your own thing and pursue whatever you like. We've got some prompts here that you can use to sort of inspire how you think about this 2034. But again, you do you. And I will figure out how to turn the music back on. We'll do this for probably like 10 minutes, and then we'll do a little chatting. Okay. I hate to like harsh the vibe like that. Sorry. Because this is, I think, so many of our favorite parts and it's so chill. But we love nothing more than to get people out of a radar event on time. So I'm going to invite Caitlin to do some closing thoughts, some observation, maybe Olivia and Shuya too. And we'll leave this guy open too, so we can keep building this world together.
I love it. Thank you. You broke me out. I was deep in looking for images of, I was just in Kyoto, and in the trains, they had velvet, like benches, you know? So like, I don't know, today I was thinking about how the subways would like feel so different with like feelings foregrounded. But thanks for bringing me out of that. I've also been thinking a lot about Keely and I were messaging each other earlier because I was reading about, Botox and facial expressions and like the aesthetics of beauty and the connection to feeling or not feeling. So I'm like in that tip. That's what's coming up for me. But I would love I love the aspiration of the plain croissant. I mean, first I'll look, is there anybody who's feeling enthusiastic and wants to like raise a hand and jump in with something that came to them or that they saw that makes you want to time travel straight to this future or is interesting for you? No, Liv, it didn't, because it didn't smell bad because it was Japan.
Fair point.
Let's see. I mean, I'd love to too, Olivia or Shuya, like if there's anything that, I mean, I know you've been thinking about this a lot. If there was anything that someone dropped on the board that had not occurred to you, that's like always my favorite multiplayer part, you know?
I think that there. Olivia, you want to go?
I actually like. I think one of my favorite pieces was the older woman's face and that invitation around like we give emotion with our bodies, and what is it like? We create and we give and receive with our bodies, and how are we changing our bodies towards or against that? And so I feel like I'm the age of my life where everyone is starting to get Botox, and my partner and I talk about all the time, like, oh, I want to have life lived on my face. Like, I don't want to be frozen. And that actually was one of my favorite little moments to stumble across.
We're bringing post-Botox future into our future as well, which we're about to head into. The like deeply sensual faces are happening. So
I'm here for it.
I mean, I think it's the same kind of trend, right? There's I've been reading this book called "Are We Human," which is a archaeologist, like called like design archaeology. But there's a sentiment that it brings in that after World War II, the Eames era, so the chair designers, really created this movement of smooth, seamless design. And it was just the sentiment of like, just keep smiling. Like everything was so traumatic and chaotic and strange during the World War that the role of design was to bring in seamless, smooth, happy, plexiglass, shiny experiences. And I think a lot about like wrinkles these days as well is that, you know, is our obsession with youth and Botox and wrinkleless experiences and like seamless flat design and glossiness in cyberspace, that same kind of like, well, if you can't see texture, like if you can't see details, if it's all shiny and slick and smooth, like it's all going to be okay. Just keep smiling. And I think that there are so many thoughts and moments and little snippets in this mural board that are not all happy feelings. Like there are things that are slightly darker and existential and make you really sit with what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human right now? What does it mean to be human in a world that is rapidly changing and shifting? And I think that developing an ease and a comfort with those slightly maybe darker or more just complicated flavors is so important as well. And in this recognition of like, how do you be whole and experience the whole spectrum of emotions and find your own ergonomics around things that might be scary or feel like they are full of grief, instead of just the saturated dopamine feelings that so much of our products are designed to deliver to us. So, yeah, that's all. This was so lovely. I think my favorite moment is like always watching the emergence of like someone decides to take that first, I'm going to move this into the center, and then a cluster starts to form around it. And that moment of emergence of tipping over from here is one thought, and the growth that happens around it, I think is always beautiful. And every time I'm always like, is it going to happen? What if no one? What if no one?
It always happens here. Everybody's always worried. I'm like, you don't have to worry. There are people who opt in to rate, even if it's not radar people who like self-select into radar events, and certainly the ones who stay the whole time, they're jumping in. It always works. It always works. Well, thank you guys so much. We are at time. I will get everybody who RSVP'd to this, the recording, as soon as I have it processed. I'll send the Miro board as well. I'll drop it in the Radar community. For those of you who are not part of Radar and are still on the call, if you're interested, we're always accepting new members. So please find your way to our site and keep an eye on Olivia and Shuya. They're two of my favorite people and brains on the internet. And you should just, always be following, even though there are no doors on the internet anymore. But it's great because we're going to build them. We're going to build the doors, and they're going to be great doors and many, many hot tubs to come. So thanks, everybody. And we'll see you on the internet.